Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore the unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today, we're exploring prophecies from the past that actually came true. How did these futurists divine the truth? Strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown. Hey, Kyle, how's it going? I am so glad that we're back doing another podcast, exploring a strange topic. This is a topic that we kind of discussed offline pretty briefly, and then you found all kinds of stuff about this.
I just went ballistic with it, kind of, because there's just so much. I just can't believe that so many people sat and 120 years ago just said this is what I think the future is going to be, and I just thought it was crazy.
Yeah. Now, when you were a kid, you obviously probably had thoughts about your own predictions for the future. Is there anything that you were hoping would come true that did come true?
No, I remember, I remember it was like fifth grade, and my teacher always going, by the time you're my age and it's 2020, you guys are going to be in flying cars. And it was something that she harped on, she really truly believed it. That's she thought, just like what this year is the year they estimated George Jetson was born.
Oh, right. It's funny you say flying cars because I predicted we were going to be talking about flying cars today, and I loaded it into the overlays. Yes. Okay. What are some of the things that you were looking forward to as a kid that still haven't happened, but you think could happen?
Oh man, I figured by now we'd be able to transport from place to place.
Teleportation?
Almost like The Fly, or the Star Trek when they get beamed up
Beam
type
me
of
up.
thing.
Yeah.
I thought we would be closer to something like that by now.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think that's probably the toughest bit of technology that anybody could possibly conceive. But you know what? They are working on stuff like that. There's
it worked for Mike TV.
Yeah. There's a quantum theory called quantum entanglement, where two particles can have their existence so intimately connected that no matter how far apart you separate them, a change in one instantly creates a change in the other, an identical change in the other. So the idea of teleportation would have to kind of depend on that function where you quantum entangle a certain set of particles, and then you separate them across great distances. And then somebody walks in to the teleportation pad, and their cells essentially get destroyed by the first set, but they get recreated on the other end through this quantum entanglement process. And it seems scary. Very risky to me.
My part has always been the reconstruction part.
Yeah. It seems like a very risky process. Yeah. Galaxy Quest, I think, made the risk seem not even that bad. They're like, oh, he turned inside out and exploded. Right. But it's way worse than that. Like you have a jigsaw puzzle with something like 100 trillion pieces, and they're each so small. Like, how could you ever have a system that could keep track of all of them? It seems like a tall order. But I like the idea of the, speaking of Star Trek, the food printer, or the replicator in Star Trek, where Picard goes over, he says, tea, Earl Grey, hot, and then there it is. And now we have something called food printers, where you go and you punch in your order, and then it creates a dish for you to consume out of food printing material, whatever it may be. It's kind of cutting edge, not necessarily nutritious, but it's getting there.
It's like eating plastic then?
Well, I don't know what they use as their medium, right? It could be chocolate. There's a lot of ones that use chocolate. Could be kind of like a vegetable mass, like mashed potatoes, maybe. Another one could be kind of protein. There was this guy who was developing something called schmeat, which is the combination of the words of sh and meat, right?
Yeah.
You get me? Because this is schmeat. But it was basically meat grown in a petri dish. And they're trying, there are efforts by Bill Gates and others to make it so that all meat that we consume in the future cannot come from live animals. It has to be schmeat. What do you think of that?
I think that's going to make a ribeye very expensive.
Very expensive, very unappetizing.
I'd like a real cow ribeye. That'll be $320.
Yeah, that'll be 300. Well, by then the dollar may not be worth very much. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. What do you think about predictions by movie? Yeah. Danger Kitty, you're right. As long as it's not Soylent Green. As long as it's not my schmeat that we're eating.
Nobody wants my schmeat.
What do you think about movies like Demolition Man? And the 3 Shells and the Taco Bell restaurant wars?
I think that they're going to have to figure something out, especially with paper shortages and loss of trees and the way that they're going to have to figure something out. But I don't know if the 3 Shells is going to work for me.
Yeah, I don't think that's really my brand either. I mean, maybe a bidet. I don't mind a bidet. Like if we made that commonplace, because I'm tired of wiping my butt, man. It's a pain. It's a literal pain in the butt. It's a literal pain in the butt. All right, but you wanted to talk about a guy. You found a guy named Watkins, right? John Elfrith Watkins.
Yep.
And was it 1900?
It's 1900. Yeah.
1900. He wrote an article saying what may happen in the next 100 years. What did he say? What did he come up with?
The first one that he came up with was digital color photography.
Oh, I got a photo. Look at that. Digital color photography.
And what he said was photographs will be telegraphed from any distance. If there be a battle in China 100 years hence, snapshots of the most striking events will be published in the newspapers later. Well, it's a little bit quicker than that. And photographs will produce all of nature's colors.
That is absolutely spot on. That is actually happening.
He was pretty good with it. He really was.
You know what's so funny though is I feel like with this current conflict in Ukraine, I feel like we're not getting a whole lot of video or photographic evidence. Right? We're not really seeing a whole lot. And I remember
like normally.
Like at the outset, we were getting a lot of photos and videos that actually happened other places and other times. And so maybe digital photography is just the first step. Maybe, I mean, what did he say anything about like deep fakes or Photoshop or digital photography manipulation? Because that seems to be what's really kind of taking off right now.
No, he just figured, No more of the standing there for 3 minutes. Why it develops that it's, black and white, because that's why people didn't smile originally in pictures. Because the amount of time it took for it to develop.
Right. They had to stand there and hold a pose, and it took up to several minutes for the film to expose.
So they all look like it was a very boring process.
Yeah. Did he say anything else? Was that the main one?
Going with the digital thing, like one of the ones he did was he said there'll be mobile phones.
Oh yeah,
he said wireless telephone and telegraph circuits will span the world. A husband in the middle of the Atlantic will be able to converse with his wife sitting in Chicago, and we'll be able to telephone China quite as easy as we talk from New York to Brooklyn.
Yeah. Honestly, about 22 years, because this is for the year 2000, right? 22 years ago, that was pretty accurate. I feel like our technology has way outpaced that, though.
But
it's gone way further.
We had cell phones in 2000. That was.
Yeah, we did have cell phones in 2000. What I'm saying is, we've gone even further, right?
Yes.
Now we have video calls where you can, like we're doing right now, right? You are sitting on one side you're sitting on the opposite side of Maricopa County from me, and we're having a conversation in real time.
Yeah.
Or the delay is so slight that it's negligible.
Well, the thing with that prophecy as well was it says international phone calls were unheard. Like it was another 15 years before Alexander Bell even, came to, like with
the transatlantic phone line. Yeah.
Yes. So that was, but maybe we'll get into this a little bit more, but I wonder where he got this idea from. Was it because like phones weren't even a thing? How do you think there would be mobile phones?
Well, I would say that there were probably some similar technologies, telegrams, telegraphs.
So you just think he was not more of a doing predictions, but more of a realist of how he saw technology evolving.
They call them futurists, right? There's people who sit around and they think about what type of technology could be in the future, and then they basically set people on the path to achieve those things. And
I don't think he just read like too much Jules Verne.
I mean, he may have. Jules Verne is another type of guy who kind of looked toward the future. But at the same time, you question, well, were they seeing the future, or were they influencing the future? Which came first, the prediction, or obviously the prediction has to come first, but did the prediction become a thing because the future was always going to be that way, or did the future get that way because of their prediction? Right? Do you think of things like Gene Roddenberry, who did Star Trek? The flip phone was based on the communication device from Star Trek.
Yep.
And then touch screens on computers is the result of Star Trek. They're predicting something that's going to be available in 400 or 500 years, but because they predicted it, their fans who grew up to work in these technologies pushed things in that direction.
So they're the ones, like he's the one who planted the seed.
Right. But either way, it's still impressive, right? I mean, I think one of the things that he talked a lot about in his article was food technology.
Yes.
Right.
He did one that said pre-prepared meals. Ready-cooked meals will be brought from establishments similar to bakeries of today. So, I mean, I guess you could say that because, I mean, we have all kinds of pre-made food. All we got to do is just pop it in the microwave now, reheat it, and it's done. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. TV dinners, microwave meals. But more than that, now we've got Uber Eats that takes no time. I mean, it takes some time, but it takes almost no time
just too
to get
expensive.
a fresh meal from a restaurant to your door.
Yes.
You know, you
Like
don't
I,
even have to get pants on, and you can have a restaurant quality meal in your living room. That's pretty impressive too.
as long
But
as they can get it cheaper, that's all they got to do.
but one of the craziest things to me is the invention. There were so many technological inventions in agriculture in the 20th century that made it possible to feed a hugely expanding population. Like the 20th century was a population explosion unlike the earth had ever seen. And if we could only grow crops at the level that we did in 1900, there would have been starvation across the planet.
Mm.
But because of crop growing technology, they were able to not only keep up with population growth, but outpace the needs of the population and create a surplus. So now there's enough food and to spare. The only reason that anybody's starving right now is because of war, politics. It's not because there's a lack of food.
Yeah.
Like we could, you have people who are producing a surplus and they're shipping it around the world to sell to other countries because they don't need it. Whereas in the past, you would be lucky if your country could produce all of the food that the population needed. So food technology has gone leaps and bounds. And the reason why I think that this pre-prepared meals thing is such an impressive prediction is because food technology in 1900 was really tough. Like
Yeah.
the crop growing and the ranching and the husbandry, all that stuff was really tough back then. They certainly didn't have Schmeat yet.
They did not. Which goes to show that he said, because he also came out with something that was called the hothouse vegetables.
Yeah, greenhouse, right? Those are
A
greenhouses.
greenhouse. Yeah, a greenhouse. So I mean, to even that he thought there was going to be that, he says winters will be turned into summer, nights will be day by the farmer. He says vegetables will be bathed in powerful electric light, serving like sunlight to hasten their growth. Electric currents applied to the soil will make valuable plant grow larger and faster. And he said, and will kill troublesome weeds. We still have kind of a problem with that.
Well,
He says,
he's talking about sending electric shock therapy through plants, through your crops.
Yeah. He says electricity applied to garden seeds will make them sprout and develop unusually early. Large gardens under glass. They said it was large gardens of glass were already a reality, but he was correct that he actually added the part where it's actually going to be electricity that's good that's doing it. So I thought that was kind of
Yeah, I would say there's been a lot of advances. Did you know that they grow bananas in Iceland? You can grow bananas in Iceland because of the geothermal energy there, and they use that to channel into the greenhouses to keep it a tropical climate in these greenhouses year round. So he was absolutely spot on that one.
Because it was 53 years later before there was any like brochures or talking about a greenhouse with electricity.
Yeah.
And that was issued by the British Electrical Development Association. They said they have a 1956 soil heater that was used to assist germinations in the seeds.
That's incredible.
So I just want to know what, like, it would just, that kind of guy, these kind of people would probably be fun to have a couple beers with.
Yeah, just see what they think.
Let me tell you about the year 2000, Sonny. You know,
the one of the things that I find really fascinating was his predictions about war. And what's ironic about that, I don't know if you saw the movie 1917, where it's these two young soldiers and they're trying to get from point A to point B, and they have to go through all of this just wasted battlefield, and they're primarily kind of holed up in these trenches, and the real trick of it is how do they get across the battlefield, because the enemy's trenches are on the other side, and they're gonna get freaking killed. So trench warfare was basically the mode of battle in World War One. And then when World War II came around, some of the participants were like, okay, start digging those trenches. But they didn't realize that in the 15, 20 years between the end of World War I and World War II, the Germans had developed tanks.
mm-hmm.
Tanks were new. It was a new technology. And it was still 30, 40 years ahead of where Mr. Watkins was predicting.
Yeah, because what he did, he predicted huge forts on wheels will dash across open spaces at the speed of express trains of today.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're quite at the express train level, but they go pretty quick.
Well, in 1900, let's see, in 18 at the turn of the century, they were going about 50 miles an hour. 50, 60 miles an hour on those train tracks at the fastest. So an express train would have been going 50, 60 miles an hour. I don't know that there are some tanks that do go that fast.
Yeah, now, yeah.
And in the year 2000, they could go that fast. But usually they proceed quite slowly and with caution. But yeah. And then, did he ever say anything about like disease? Did he predict anything about medicine? I don't think so.
No. I know he predicted television as well.
Television? What did he say about television?
He said, man will see around the world. Persons of things of all kinds will be brought within focus of a camera's connection electrically with screens at opposite ends of circuits, thousands of miles at a span.
That's incredible. I mean, did they have radio in 19? I think they had radio. The beginnings of radio in 1900.
Mm-hmm. Well, they still had wound up the.
When did they invent radio? Gosh, 1920 maybe.
So he might have been even a little bit.
Oh no! Marconi's radio was 1895 to 1896, and it was commercially available in 1900. So I'm guessing he probably saw the radio and he's like, nope. You know what else? Not just sound. There'll also be video. There's also going to be pictures. Yeah.
But I mean, he's right. I mean, especially especially what you're talking about before. I mean, right now, there are cameras focused on us, connected electricity with screens at opposite ends. We're not thousands of miles apart, but we can be. But we're a lot of miles apart.
When we do our Saturday night podcast, there's people from all over the country, right?
Yep.
California, East Coast, Midwest, all over.
Mm-hmm. So
now, you also kind of looked up. Let's see. You looked up another guy who made predictions in 1922 about 2022.
Yes.
Some fellow named George.
Yes. And so his prophecies are from a century. So yeah, it says one of his was I suspect that commercial flying will have become entirely commonplace. The passenger steamer will survive on the coast, but it will have disappeared on the main routes and it'll have been replaced by flying convoys. So you could go between London and New York in a span of 12 hours.
I think it's faster than that, right? It's like 4 or 5.
To go from London to New York?
Oh, London to New York. Oh, I was thinking
Yeah.
coast to coast. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's
Pretty spot on.
It is pretty,
especially right at the beginning of flight.
Yes,
in
it is
1922.
pretty commonplace for us to fly.
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't taken over like routes, cars or anything yet.
It's true.
But it is very commonplace.
It is commonplace. And in fact, I would say all of the sexiness of flying has been taken away by the TSA and small seats packed in close together, huddled close together. No food on your flights. You get nickeled and dimed for your luggage. Yeah.
I figured you'd say when they told you couldn't smoke in a plane anymore.
Yeah. They've taken all of the fun out of flying.
See, he's also said the people of 2022 will probably never see a wired outline against the sky. It's practically certain that wireless telegraphy and wireless phones will have crushed the cable system long before the century is done.
That is almost true. I mean, a lot of our wires are underground here in Arizona.
As everything is built new, it's becoming more underground.
I do enjoy an unobstructed view of Red Mountain on my way home from work from time to time. But I do have to be pretty far. I have to be on the North 202 coming off the freeway to get that view. Because there still are a lot of wires. There
is. And it's going to be a long time before they're gone. It really is. Like I grew up against I-17.
Uh-huh.
And to anyone who's listening outside of Arizona, it's one of our main freeways here. My neighborhood is bumped up right against it. So there's like hardcore power lines going down the street. And I always wondered, looking up at that, I'm like I'd be walking down the street or something, and it's not like just regular power lines. It was like these, like you could tell because originally when that neighborhood was built, there was nothing there. It was the outline of the city at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are these lines going to cost us living in this neighborhood? Like, what are the repercussions going to be to us? Like, just, is there anything coming off of them? Which I doubt. I don't think there is. But like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Is it something that's going to?
Yeah, like Tommy Boy goes, "Did you live under power lines as a kid?" Or
exactly.
Something like that. Yeah, the radiation coming off of them.
Yes. Another one of his was, coal will not be exhausted, but our reserves will be seriously depleted, and so will oil. One of the world dangers of a century hence will be a shortage of fuel, but it's likely that at the time a great deal of power will be attained from the tides, the sun, radium, and other forms of radial energy, while it also be that atomic energy will be harnessed.
All right, so let's break that down. So tides is hydroelectric, which we have.
Mm-hmm.
Sun, solar, we have that. Radium and other forms of radial energy, they're talking about nuclear power.
And we have that. We have a big power plant here in Arizona.
Yeah. And then atomic energy, they're talking about fusion and fission.
Which we haven't figured out yet.
Well, fission is what we use to power nuclear weapons, right? What they're doing is they're splitting atoms, and it causes this chain reaction that creates an enormous amount of energy. But the problem with it as an energy source is that it's hard to contain, and it does way more than we need it to, right? So it's like swatting a fly with a bazooka. You don't need that kind of power to boil water. It'll vaporize all the water before it does anything.
And fusion is what the sun is.
Fusion is the sun, exactly.
And that's what we haven't quite harnessed yet.
Well, yeah, because the initial energy you have to put into the reaction is still so much to create a self-sustaining fusion reaction. Doc Ock makes it look so easy in Spider-Man 2, but it's really not that easy. And
like that's why I always wondered, had they ever really talked about our star, the sun? Like I wonder what in space that it takes to create that force.
Well, yeah, so it's two different things. Two different things are happening. One of them is pressure that pulls the matter together to begin with and creates the pressure that causes those atoms to fuse together. But when it does, it unleashes an amount of energy that pushes back out, that creates the sphere of the star. So the force that's pulling it together is gravity, right? You have these huge groups of cosmic dust or just hydrogen in space, and it just kind of groups together because of gravity. And when it gets tight enough together, if those hydrogen atoms start to fuse into helium, and that energy creates this kind of reaction that pushes back out against the gravity, and it creates this kind of give and take. And eventually, when the atoms start to get too heavy, the star runs out of fuel, and there's not as much energy to push back out, and so a star can collapse in on itself. And when it does that, it either goes supernova and explodes, or it turns into a black hole, depending on how big it is. Or it can be a neutron star. There's lots of different things, but it's gravity plus the explosive force of the reaction.
Wouldn't it be cool to see that as like the original, like you start seeing the sparks kind of shoot, or whatever begins, whatever that beginning stage is.
Yeah, you're not the only person to think that, though, right? That's why we have all these telescopes in space. In space, you just kind of point it in any direction, and whatever you're seeing is just kind of like time travel, because it takes so long for that light to reach us. But yeah, that's what they're looking for with like the Hubble telescope, and then this new telescope they just sent up called the James Walters or something like that. I forget what it's called, but they just sent another telescope up to look for all that stuff. But it is impressive that George was able to pin down all of the primary sources of energy. I think the only one he missed was wind, those big wind turbines, but I guess that could also kind of be tidal energy. But he nailed hydroelectric, solar, nuclear, and fusion and fission. Like that's really impressive. It looks like he also was talking about the technology around a lot of the same things that Watkins talked about TVs and telephones and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that he talked about was the preservation of historical landmarks, right? The buildings that we have in Washington. Let's see.
He said, many buildings now standing will be preserved. It is conceivable that the Capitol at Washington, many of the universities and churches will be standing 100 years hence, and they will be almost unaltered and be preserved by tradition.
And which is true. Like we could demolish all these buildings and build new ones, and these great kind of industrial projects. The TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, was about building dams and building, new energy plants and stuff. And it employed a lot of Americans during the Great Depression, or the back half of the Great Depression. But instead of creating new Capitol buildings, we just retrofit the old ones with new technology, right? So we put anti-aircraft on the White House. There's surveillance all throughout the Capitol building where the legislature meets.
Well, look at places like Notre Dame and some of those schools. They're you know what I mean. They're still here. They're you know what I mean. They're not tearing them down. They're same thing. They've just upgraded them in technology wise, but the actual way it is standing, it's still here.
Yeah. You can still see touchdown Jesus at the end of the football field in Notre Dame. Yeah, I used to live down the street from Notre Dame campus. But yeah, absolutely. The preservation of buildings, that's kind of a weird prediction to make, saying we'll still love our old architecture.
That's, and what I kind of liked about him is he kind of really got into what really made me I'll get into one more and then maybe we'll go back to it. But he really got into like traditions and to like
day-to-day stuff, right?
And like women's, how women are going to be.
Yeah, what do you say about that?
So one of the things he said is, it is practically certain that in 2022, nearly all women will have discarded the idea that they are primarily the makers of men. Most fit women will then be following an individual career. All positions will be open to them, and a great woman will have risen high. And a great many women will have risen high.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's not a lot of June cleavers anymore.
My wife's a June cleaver. She stays at home with the kids. She's a homemaker. But I have 7 kids, and it's kind of a big job. But you're right. There are a lot of career women out there, and there's not a lot of stay-at-home moms anymore.
No, and it's like everybody knows. I mean, it's now a 2-person job to provide income for a household now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. And then, so I mean, I just I just think that's awesome that he actually predicted that kind of stuff. And like he actually predicted this is the year marriage will still exist as much as it does today. For mankind has an introvert of taste for institution. Divorce will probably be as easy everywhere as it is in Nevada.
That still hasn't come to pass. Nevada makes it very easy to get out of a marriage.
But I mean, you see the signs going down the road, divorce $199.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And most people, a lot of people and this is something I've talked about with many people, is our parents, there was a lot of divorce going on for that generation. It seems like divorce is very high. And I mean, what do they say? 40% of marriages end up in divorce.
Yeah, something like that. I think maybe 40 or 50.
And so, but you see it a lot as like our parents' generation. It seems like the next generation, like us and stuff. It seems like people are staying together, and I don't know if it's because of we've come from the generation above us is a generation of divorce where you're not. I don't think you're not seeing it as much anymore. You're seeing people stay together.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just an observation I see more people staying together now.
Danger Kitty says, I am also a housewife, but I think that his prediction rings true, as I have a choice to go back to work now and might not have back then. Yeah, absolutely.
Like back then, the only time women really went to work is when the men left for war.
Wartime, yeah.
That is a lot of time. That's when women worked. You didn't,
because there were no other choices.
Because there were no other choices.
Yeah.
So, and then another one of his predictions, also about women, was the year 2020 will probably see a large number of women in Congress, a great many on the judicial branch, many in civil service posts, and perhaps some in the president's cabinet. But it's unlikely that women will have achieved equality with men.
Huh. I wonder what he understood to be equality with men. What was?
I'm sure it's a lot different in 1900 than it is now.
I wonder what his
Or
understanding of
1922.
that was.
But I mean, he is right with that. There is all the way up to the top.
Yeah, I am actually kind of hesitant to even delve into this topic because it's very political, I'd say. But
I'm just
he
saying
is
from a
right. He is
standpoint
right about a lot of those things.
Yeah, I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong, but it's true. There is a lot of women, and it's so. I just thought, I like that a lot of his was. I know one that he didn't get right
Yeah, what's that?
was naturally the work of the household, which is being reduced day by day. It will be 2020 will be a great deal lighter. I believe that the most of the cleaning today required in a house will have been done away with. In the first place, through the disappearance of coals and where electricity is made, there will be no more smoke, perhaps not even tobacco.
Well,
I
you think that that's wrong?
I don't think yeah, kind of.
What part of that is wrong?
Do you think housework is lighter now?
Absolutely. Dishwashers, laundry machines, vacuum cleaners,
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't thinking about it that way.
central heating. So he's talking about coal. Coal was how they used to heat their houses, which caused a lot of soot. Fireplaces, coal stoves, and those are gone now. Now we have gas heating, we have electric heating, we have it's so much nicer. Um, a lot of the reason why women were able to move out of the house and take up their own careers in the 20th century was a result of the technology that
The Roomba.
yeah, exactly. Roomba. Danger Kitty nailed it.
Maybe I was thinking some on a different line of.
Is this Edgar Cayce? It's a contemporary. It's called. His name was George. Guy's name was George. The but yeah, it there were two primary things. There was like the technology, the housekeeping technology, including the electronic kitchen equipment, dishwashers, all that stuff, the housekeeping equipment, but also birth control allows women to delegate their traditional role in the 50s and 60s to these machines. And it makes things so much faster. And then when the microwave became commercially available, cooking could be done instantly.
Yeah, that's true.
It didn't take all day long. And so the 20th century was really like the liberation of women because of technology that assumed the roles that they traditionally had.
You know what? One prediction I don't see here that you would assume, since it's a bunch of dudes writing it, no one talks about Viagra.
That's a good one.
You think one dude would have said in the future, you know what I mean? Like,
so it seems like a lot of these futurists really had things pinned down. But what I want to know is who got it wrong? There's been a lot of predictions about the end of the world. Yeah, Fetz Rancor says you can't help but get political when it comes to prophecy. That's true. But we're doing a great job, I think, Kyle. What do you think?
yeah, we're not making it political. Yes,
we were trying to find predictions about the end of the world, and there have been many, and thank the Lord, none have come true so far. But whose predictions are still outstanding?
I was really hoping for the Mayan one to come true.
The 2012, is that what you're talking about?
I thought it was the year 2000. was the end of the Mayan calendar.
Yeah, the December 21st, 2012, the 2012 phenomenon predicted the world would end at the end of the 13th Baktun, which is basically a month in the Mayan calendar. They called their months Baktun. And then the Earth would be destroyed by an asteroid or some other object, maybe an alien invasion or a supernova. The
gray aliens are making it so that we're not getting destroyed by aliens.
Well, thank goodness for gray aliens, because I am really enjoying Netflix, and I still have a lot of shows to watch before the end of the world.
The Tinder Swindler.
Tinder Swindler. Yeah, that's next on the list.
If you guys haven't seen that yet, I'll brief it down real quick. He scammed a bunch of women out of a bunch of money because he posed as this person, and all he was doing was getting women to send him money, and that money was like using to like have this lavish lifestyle. And like, don't get me wrong, it's not cool to swindle people out of a bunch of money, and but it's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, I'm in this big trouble. We can't use credit cards. Get a loan for $20,000 and send me the cash.
Swindler. I barely know her. So the Mayan prediction is, I think, is kind of unfairly attributed to the Mayans. They had a calendar they called the long count that would take like 600, maybe 700, maybe 1,200 years. And one of its eras would end in 2012, but they still had other eras that went past it. So maybe unfair to say that the Mayans predicted the end of the world in 2012. But have you ever heard of Rasputin? I'm sure you have.
I don't think so.
The Russian weirdo. He was a Russian mystic who died in 1916, and he prophesied that a storm would take place on August 23rd, 2013. And fire would destroy most life on land, and Jesus would come back to earth to comfort those in distress. He didn't guess it. I mean, I haven't seen Jesus. I haven't seen the fires. So I'm going to say he got that one wrong. What do you think?
Yep, I'm pretty sure he got that one wrong. But I thought, with the Mayan calendar too, I thought the reason they predicted the end is because however they had their calendar set up was actually a big, it just ended and there was like a cavern, like a hole that dropped off, and they thought that's why.
Fetz Raycourt says, I remember when a friend of mine thought that when the planets aligned in 2003 or 2004, that it would herald the end. Yeah, that's kind of a very horoscopy thing. Planetary alignment, all that kind of thing. Very, very Hercules, right? That was like the whole plot of Hercules, Disney's Hercules, was the planets aligned, and they opened up the cell to the Titans, and it signaled the end of the world. But still hasn't happened. Thank goodness. Keep your fingers crossed.
And they
all right. So the real question is, what's left? What predictions are left? Well, there was one from last year. F. Kenton Beshore said in 2012, right after the Mayan prediction went belly up, he says the rapture would occur in 2021 at the latest. I just got the last two digits mixed around. It wasn't 2012, it was 2021.
Darn it.
That's the latest. Mark my words. There will be a rapture in 2021.
I like in 2020, Gene Dixon.
Sorry, Kenton. You missed it. But
missed it by this
much. There's still a couple of predictions ahead of us. One of them is for 2026. The Messiah Foundation International is a spiritual organization that predicts the world will end in 2026 when an asteroid collides with Earth in accordance with Riaz Ahmed Gohar Shahi's predictions in his book, The Religion of God. You know, go ahead.
This always just reminds me back to the movie Armageddon. Why didn't we see this thing coming? Well, you only let us $1 million only lets us see 3% of the sky. And well, sir, it's a pretty damn big sky. That's what I think now. Anytime that it says an asteroid is going to hit the Earth,
Fetz Rancor asks, did anyone see COVID? I don't recall anything about COVID or anything about a mass pandemic. Well,
No.
That's debatable. I would say that there were probably some people who saw it coming because they were the ones designing it.
My boss told me that, speaking of that, is if you noticed when, I think I told you this already, when Donald Trump would say China, to China. So in the Ukraine, on the border of Ukraine, we have these labs and they're China, CHY, So that's where he thinks it was coming. He thinks Donald Trump was
the wrong China.
Yes, he was. We were just instinctively thinking China when we should have really been listening to him when he said China.
Yeah, it's spelled CHY like a hyphen NA,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. China.
And that's why he said it that way. So he was hinting to
very
the
clever.
American
Very
people.
clever.
He was he was in the how honest Donald Trump is. That he was informing the people of the world that it was really not China. It was China.
So, very clever.
Take it as you will. I don't make the news. I'm just reporting it.
Just report it. There's another one for the 21st century, 2028. Fellow named Kent Hovind says that while there's no way to be certain, thanks, Kent.
That's a good way to. It's kind of like starting a sentence with, "I might be a dick, but."
You might be a dick, but
there's no way to be certain, but
he speculated in 2015 that 2028 was most likely year for the rapture. Thanks, Kent. For those of you not familiar with the concept of the rapture, it's when all of God's chosen people are scooped up off the earth into his loving arms so that the earth can be destroyed without having to destroy any of the righteous.
That's why they say the dead still walk right now, is because they're waiting for the rapture of actually being brought to heaven. That's why there's still paranormal activity going on, because they're waiting for that time.
I do not pretend to be a scholar in end of world prophecies or the kind of thing, but this sounds plausible. I will say that. Sounds plausible.
Like you don't actually go to heaven yet because they're waiting for the rapture, and then all those people get to go.
And then the pearly gates will open, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
So
yeah. Oh, Danger Kitty says, some people say Baba Vanga, the blind Bulgarian mystic, predicted COVID, but I have not found any proof of that yet. Likely something vague like Nostradamus. Yeah, well, I've heard stuff like that.
I'm going to say in 4 years we're going to have. Here's my prophecy. Hold on. In 4 years, during not the this. No, I'm going to go 6 years.
6 years. Yeah, I better go 6 years.
6 years. Right before the
in October of 2028.
During the presidential election, we are going to have a new virus.
Something horrible will come to pass. Absolutely. The October surprise is now a cataclysmic event.
You would think these people would get together and be like, and settle on a date.
Yeah, there are more distant dates predicted for the world's end, but like what's the point in even going over them? Because we won't be around to even check our homework,
21, 29. No, I might still be here. You won't be.
Yeah, I definitely will not. I will be long dead in 21, 29. Then you've got 22, 39, 22, 80. Yeah, I will be long dead.
So, pretty much saying that it's not going to end.
I mean, but what does that even mean, the end of the world? You have to define what the world is. I mean, we're talking about the destruction, the cataclysmic destruction of the planet into dust and particles, or are we talking about the end of civilization?
I think what's actually going to truly happen is Mother Earth is going to be like, you guys suck. I'm done. I'm done putting up with you guys.
So you're thinking more of like a One Punch Man scenario where the Earth creates Vaccine Man and he comes to destroy humanity, but we're saved by a bald office worker who can do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and
I'm
run a
saying
10K
more
every
Earth
day.
is going to be like, you know what? I'm done with you guys. I'm cutting it off.
Squish. Yeah, Mother Nature is pretty unforgiving, I'd say. Well, I think that pretty much covers the prophecy and predictions that we wanted to address. Did you have anything else you want to go over?
I think the future prediction in 300,000 years is a pretty good one.
300,000? Yeah, again, no one's going to be around to check his homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Fetz Rancor says there is a corporation working on making it to where humanity can live to be 150 years old on average.
It seems like a big pain in the ass.
It does kind of seem like a pain in the ass. Are you expected to work all that time?
Dude, that means like, the new retirement age is like 137.
Yeah. Yeah. You keep working, Grandma. You keep working until those fingers fall off.
No, but I think Peter Tudale's, I like his. In approximately 300,000 years, a triple star is expected to explode in a supernova. It says that it will produce gamma rays, a gamma ray burst that could pose a threat to life on Earth. And should its poles be aligned 12 degrees or lower towards Earth. So,
yeah.
Because they say right now that the tilt or angle is at 30 to 40. So right now, so any gamma ray burst should not hit Earth.
Like, here's the thing. Like, clearly, these types of cataclysms have happened in the past because the dinosaurs were here and then they weren't here. But we don't know when it'll come. We don't know when it'll happen or what form it will take. And
when my mom went to school, her teachers told her growing up that dinosaurs were fake. There were really no dinosaurs, that people began here and there was never anything prior to people.
Oh, it was like very creationist.
Yeah. So dinosaurs are just something that we've made up. And then we don't really find them, as stone in the ground, and we get them out and it's all fake. So for a long time she would say that and I'd be like, Mom, that doesn't make sense.
Mom, that's not true.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's what I was told in school growing up. That's what I was taught.
Yeah, I come from a religious and also scientific family, and there's a lot of like what they call apologia, where you're trying to justify the words of Scripture or the stories in the Scripture, like in the Bible about creation, by making presumptions or assumptions about science or using science. And one of the ones that I hear a lot is that the matter that God used to create Earth 7,000 years ago were planets occupied by dinosaurs that he destroyed and then reformed into the Earth. And so that's how the dinosaur bones got here.
That's awesome. You think you're
Yeah.
gonna clean
Just wait. Just wait till we get to the Bigfoot stuff, man. Just wait till we get to Bigfoot.
I don't know. I can't wait either.
But yeah, I would say don't hold your breath for the end of the world, because everybody who's ever predicted it has been wrong. Not that nobody can be right about it, but if
you
they
you
can
throw
be
enough
right,
crap against the wall, eventually somebody's gonna get it right.
some's gonna stick. Yeah, for sure. But what could we even do about it? What could we do about it?
Nothing.
I mean, if we're talking about an asteroid headed towards Earth, and they're just gonna, there's not a lot we could do about a giant asteroid headed towards Earth.
Yeah, we go up and we drill a hole
and drop a nuclear bomb in it.
And it cuts it in half and it misses, man. We've already explained what we're gonna do.
Well, it's too bad Bruce Willis isn't up to the task anymore.
Where's the operator?
We could really use him at a time like this. Well, that's about all I had. What about you?
No, we got to 300,000 years in the future. I think we pretty much went from 1900 to 300,000. So I think we're pretty good.
I think we pretty much covered it. Oh, let's see what Danger Case says. Michael Stipe from REM says, at the end of the world, as we know it, we can feel fine. And that's a great way to end it.
That is a great way to end it.
Danger Kitty, Fets Rancor, thank you guys for commenting. We really appreciate the conversation, exploring these topics. I think there's stuff that's on a lot of people's mind all the time, and we just don't really get a place to talk about it. And this is the place where you can talk about it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna laugh at your ideas. We're not gonna tell you they're dumb, because we have plenty of dumb ones of our own. And
listen to me every Saturday night.
Yeah. When we're on Modern Comic Mayhem, we don't hold back. We're not holding back here either. So thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And
you can find this. Remember, everyone, you can find this audio-wise. I upload on Monday morning. So if you want to listen again and laugh at us, and if you've got any ideas for future shows, message us. You can do Instagram at Thresholds of Reality on Instagram. You can email us at thresholdsofreality@gmail.com. You could find me on Instagram at Kyle6479.
We also have the Thresholds Instagram.
Yep.
And we are also now on Spotify and iHeartRadio and iTunes,
Amazon. We're on
all
Amazon
the major
Radio, Google Radio,
podcast
all of
outlets.
it. Stitcher. We're everywhere. Well, thanks, Red Car. That's what we're trying to get, is that Coast to Coast 5.
Appreciate it. All right. Until then, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.